Okay, so we're learning to solve word problems. This is day 2. The essential question is, how do I write and solve equations for word problems? How do I write equations and solve word problems? Learning intention. I'm learning to write equations for and solve word problems. So you've got 2 warm-up questions. So pause the video and see if you can find the slope of these two, between the 2 points and of the graph. Pause the video now, please. I hope you tried. So we know that this is x, y, x, y. And our slope is delta y over delta x. In other words, the change in y over the change in x. So it is 8 minus 12 over -4 minus -6. Well, we know we don't minus the negative, but we do plus the positive. 8 minus 12 is -4. -4 plus 6 is +2. So my slope is -4 over +2. -4 divided by +2 is -2, and that would be my slope. Now, what about writing the equation? What would I do? Well, this is what you would have to do. You'd have to pick one of these 2 points. We know that slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. We're looking for b. We know the slope and we know a point. I'm going to use the first point. 8 is equal to -2 times -4 plus b. All I did was substitute in. 8 is equal to -2 times -4 is 8 plus b. Subtract 8 from both sides, and 0 is equal to b. So this equation would be y is equal to -2x. I could put the plus 0 in, but should I? No. Okay, let's look at the next one. I've got to find where it goes through a corner of a box. So I notice it goes through here. As I come down, it goes through here again. Now I count. I go down 1, 2, and I go right 1. So my slope would be -2 over 1, which is -2. Now this one's even easier to write it in y-intercept form because b is where it crosses the y-axis. So y is equal to -2x minus 4, and that would be the equation of that line. Okay, find x and find all the angle measures. Okay, what's my first step? Well, my first step is to identify what type of angles I have. These are what we call a linear pair. They form a line. A line has 180 degrees. They are supplementary. That means add up to 180 degrees. So I know that 4x plus 6 plus 11x minus 6 is equal to 180 degrees. Okay, 4x plus 11x. 4x plus 11x, those are my like terms. That will be 15x And I've got positive 6 plus negative 6. That's 0. So that's canceled out. And this is equal to 180 degrees. Divide both sides by 15. Okay, so getting the calculator out. (180) divided by 15 gives me 12. So x is equal to 12. And it'll be 12 degrees. Okay, how do I find one of the two? I substitute in. 4 times 12 plus 6. I'm using this one. 4 times 12, that's 48 plus 6. 48 plus 6 is 54 degrees. Okay, for the other one, you can either substitute in again or you can use the fact that they add up to 180. So if I use the fact they add up to 180, I take 180 degrees minus 54 degrees, and that gives me 126 degrees. That's for this part right here. 11 times 12 minus 6. Is 132 degrees minus 6 degrees is equal to 126 degrees also. So no matter which way you do it, whether you 180 minus or if you substitute it in, you'll get the same answer. Okay. Jim exercises on a treadmill 6 days per week. For each session, he warms up with walking for 10 minutes, then runs at a constant speed of 10 kilometers per hour. He cools down by walking another 10 minutes. If Jim runs 90 kilometers per week, how many hours does he run a day? So as we're looking at this, the important stuff. 6 days a week, he runs 6 days a week, exercise. Now the walking we don't count, but the running we do. It's at a constant speed of 90 kilometers per hour. He cools down by walking another 10 minutes. We don't need to worry about that. That's extra information. If he runs 90 kilometers per week, how many hours does he run? We're only looking at the running a day. Okay, so how do we do this? What do we need to look for first? Well, we want to know how many he runs per day. We know that he does 90 kilometers per week, but that is all 6 of those days. So the very first thing we're going to do is to take the 90 kilometers and divide it by 6 to see how many kilometers he runs per day. And that would be 15. Okay, now, we know how many he runs per day, but how fast does he run? He runs 10 kilometers per hour. So each day he runs 15 kilometers at 10 kilometers per hour. So next I'm going to take my 15 and I'm going to divide it by the 10 per hour he does, and I get 1.5 kilometers, or 1.5 hours. Because this is kilometers per hour, so the kilometers will cancel out. Okay, so what does that mean? How many hours does he run a day? Jim runs an hour and a half, the 0.5 is a half, hours per day. And that would be each day he exercises. So how long does he exercise per day? Well, it's an hour and a half of running, 10 minutes warm up and 10 minutes of cool down. So he exercises 1 hour and 50 minutes each day. Interesting. That's a lot more time than I have to exercise. Okay, so let's find the value of x and the angle measures. So let's take a minute and look. What do we notice about our picture? What do we notice and how can we use it? If you said this was a 90-degree angle, you would be correct. So if the angles add up to 90 degrees, they're called complementary angles. The angles are complementary. Okay, the angles are complementary. That means they add up to 90 degrees. So we know that 4x plus 7, these are all in degrees, plus 3x minus 22 is equal to 90 degrees. Combine your like terms. 4x plus 3x. 4x plus 3x is 7x. Seven minus 22. Find their difference. Okay, 12 minus 7 is 5. That gives me 15. So it's minus 15 is equal to 90 degrees. Now we're ready to get started. What's my first step in solving for x? Add 15 to both sides. Seven x is equal to 90 plus 15 is 105 degrees. $105 divided by 7 is 15. Okay, now we're ready to find the two answers. Do we want to use 4 times 15 plus 7, or do we want to use 3 times 15 and minus 22? I think I'll do the 4 times 15 plus 7. Okay, 4 times 15 is 60. 60 degrees plus 7 degrees is 67 degrees. What about the other one? 90 minus 67 would be what I would do. You don't have to do it that way, but that's the easiest for me. 90 degrees minus 67 degrees gives me 23 degrees. The other way would be 3 times 15 minus 22. So that would be 45 minus 22, which also gives me 23 degrees. For the last one, Mrs. Kim bought 15 bags of chips for a party. She paid a total of $40.72, which included $3.37 in sales tax. What is the cost of each bag? Okay, so she bought 15 bags of chips. Her total was $40.72, which has tax, and we want the cost of each bag. How do we start? Well, the first thing we need to do is to get rid of the sales tax, because the sales tax would not be part of the cost of the chips. $40.72 minus $3.37 equals okay. 12 minus 7 is 5. I have taken away from here and brought that over here. 6 minus 3 is 3. 0 minus 3 I can't do, so I borrow from the 4. This is 3. This becomes 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. Bring the 3 down, and now we know. $37.35. But that's for how many bags? Well, that's for 15 different bags. So how do we distribute it evenly? Do we add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Well, division would be the correct answer. 37.35 divided by 15. When we do that, we end up with $2.49. $2.49. So, each bag of chips cost $2.49. So, how do you know you're successful? You know you're successful when you can write an equation for and solve word problems. So these are solving word problems. And this is day 2.